Hi everyone, my name is Miriam Gonzalez Hernandez. I am a licensed social worker, part of Project Resilience, and today I'll be presenting about community circles and collaboration for the first 10 days of school. I will be discussing how to implement community circles in the classroom. Community circles are a proactive strategy to create a culture of connectivity where all members of the school community feel valued and thrive. Additionally, community circles offer students a safe space to express themselves and also an opportunity to develop their social emotional learning skills, which are important not only outside of the classroom but also within the classroom. As a restorative justice approach, community circles offer a more equitable and respectful alternative for dealing with disciplinary infractions, and that emphasizes bringing together everyone affected by wrongdoing to address needs and responsibilities and to heal the harm to relationships as much as possible. The key word here being relationships. In order for these strategies to be effective, students must have developed a relationship with one another. There are three tiers of restorative practices in schools. In this presentation, we'll focus on Tier 1 circles in order to build and strengthen relationships among students. Tier 2 and Tier 3 circles require additional steps in order to ensure that no additional harm is caused to students who participate in the circle. The setup for community circles is very simple. Chairs are placed in the circle and a centerpiece is placed in the middle as the focal point. Students can also be asked to stand around in a circle if it's too difficult to move the chairs around. The centerpiece can be a simple base, such as a mat, a scarf, or tablecloth, and the students can be asked to contribute to it by bringing in objects that maybe have a special meaning to them or objects that they feel are relevant to the classroom culture. Artwork or other creations made during a community circle can also be added to the centerpiece. The talking piece is an item that is passed from person to person and it facilitates equity of voice, meaning that everyone has an opportunity to speak and only one person speaks at a time. The circle keeper facilitates the conversation and the activities during the circle, and they monitor the well being of the participants. You will also find that students will hold each other accountable. The structure of the circle is made up of 5 parts, beginning with the opening ceremony. During the opening ceremony, we try to create an inviting environment to allow students the opportunity to share. This is when we also introduce the circle topic, and we begin with a symbol to signal the official start of the circle. This can be a quote, affirmation, or a short meditation. During relationship building, we ask a set of questions to help the group open up and check in. This will also be when the talking piece is introduced. So, if a student was asked to broaden a talking piece, they can share with their classmates what significance it has for them. Community agreements are needed to ensure that the participants can feel comfortable sharing honestly and openly during the discussion. Community norms and norms for collaboration will be developed over the first 10 days of community circles, and this will be the time to review them. Classroom building, also known as prompts or rounds, is the part of the circle where questions are asked related to the circle topic. And finally, the closing ceremony is a way to wrap up the discussion and thank everyone for bringing themselves to the circle and contributing to the discussion. I will now be going over the first 10 days of community circles. There will be 2 guides to accompany this presentation. One will be for elementary school students and another for middle and high school students. In each slide, you will find the topic for the day at the top, as well as the goal and purpose for that day. Beneath that will be examples of questions or activities to go along with each part of the circle. On day 1, students and teachers can become acquainted with the format of the circle. Students will also begin to create links and bonds with classmates and get to know each other better. The activity for day 1 is the hula hoop body pass. It's a quick and fun activity, but you can substitute it for any other activity that meets the goal and purpose of the day. Since community agreements haven't been created, you can review the students' rights that can be found in the Code of Conduct. On day 2, the students will begin to identify their values. This will serve as the foundation for classroom norms. For younger students, you might want to introduce the topic by handing out a book or a printout of a book. I've also included the link for the reading of Kindness is My Superpower by Alicia Ortego. For older students, you might want to pass around a list of values so that they can more easily identify their values. Once they've selected one, you may ask them to write it down on a sheet of paper or a paper plate, and then allow the students to share their value going around the circle. Once completed, they can place it in the centerpiece and keep it for the rest of the school year as a reminder of their values. The guides I had previously mentioned that accompany this presentation contain a sample list of values. You may feel free to use that list or create your own. And in this slide, you can also see two examples of books that touch on different values. Now that classroom values have been identified, it should be easier to have the conversation about classroom norms. Classroom norms are important so that students feel safe while sharing during circle time. By including the students in the process of identifying classroom norms, it ensures the students will keep themselves and others accountable. The questions during the classroom building portion of the circle will vary depending based on the student's age group. You can feel free to change the wording of these questions, and additional questions for middle school and high school students will be found in the guide. Here are some examples of classroom norms depending on the student's age group. You may use these as a reference when creating your own classroom norms. On day 4, classroom norms can begin to be implemented with an emphasis on building trust. As you can observe under community agreements, community norms will now be reviewed instead of the code of conduct. In terms of the classroom building activity, students will be instructed to build a tower of trust. This will require building blocks as well as dice. If neither of these objects are available in the classroom, the questions can be asked in the regular circle format. Day 5 offers an opportunity for the class to discuss different classroom matters in what is called a fishbowl circle. The instructions will be on the next slide. Here are detailed instructions on how to conduct a fishbowl circle. The first step being identifying a topic. This circle format gives students the opportunity to be active participants as well as active listeners. It is a very dynamic format. For younger students, an alternative is offered in the elementary school guide for community circles. Day 6 is all about creating norms of collaboration. These are not to be confused with classroom norms. These offer a guideline as to how students should engage and participate in the community circle. The next slide offers an example as well as an additional resource to get started. Once the norms have been identified, it is recommended that they be displayed in the classroom. Here are two examples of potential norms of collaboration. Their links are included at the end of the presentation. Similarly to Day 5, Day 7 offers students an opportunity to voice and address classroom matters. Possible topics of discussion can be changing seating arrangements, administrative items, plans to change bulletin board, or provide opportunities for students to bring up questions or concerns about the classroom. You may want to introduce a suggestion box at this time. Here's an example of simple stretching exercises that can be used as either part of the opening or closing ceremony. Day 8 can be a good refresher of the norms of collaboration. Students learn to respect differences of opinion while being mindful of how one's opinion is perceived by others. This is another good example of how these conversations will vary depending on the student's age group. For younger students, a cartoon character can be used to illustrate this lesson, as well as simplifying some of the language. With older students, you may be able to delve into who gets to decide what is fact or not, and it might also be beneficial to include a conversation about gossiping and rumors. Day 9 is dedicated to learning about identities, diversity, and equity. The goal is for students to learn about who they are and share with their class. Students will also be able to see and appreciate individual differences as well as bond over newfound commonalities. Students can be provided an identity circle template during the classroom building portion of the circle. This can be helpful for students to highlight some of the most important parts of their identity, and they can then share with their class. Here's an image of the identity circle template mentioned in the previous slide. As you can see, it lists a few categories that are intended for students to brainstorm some of the key aspects of their identity. Day 10 is an opportunity for teachers and students to talk about how circles can be used for restorative purposes using a safe scenario. This is a good opportunity to emphasize also that even when circles are used for restorative purposes, they are not intended to serve as punishment, but rather as an opportunity to repair relationships and find solutions to conflicts through dialogue. It's a good opportunity to remind students that the structure of Tier 1 and Tier 2 circles will remain the same. Students will also be able to observe the collaborative nature of restorative circles. Here are the sample safe scenarios that were mentioned in the previous slide as part of the community building portion of the circle for day 10. Some things to keep in mind that will hopefully be helpful as you get started. One of them being that fidgets can be helpful to keep students grounded and entertained. And so, along with passing around a talking piece, you may also want to pass around one or two fidgets. The other main point to consider is that in order to truly see the benefits of community circles, we hope that this will be implemented year round. But we definitely would not want to add more to your plate. And so, giving students tasks, for example, might be a good way for the responsibility to be shared, and so that it doesn't all fall on the teacher or anyone in particular. And we highly encourage students to join the circle even if they don't participate. It's definitely okay to pass. Here's a list of resources that were used to put together this presentation as well as the guides. You may use these resources to obtain further information and even get some inspiration for future circles. I hope that through this presentation, some of the questions you may have had about community circles have been answered and that you feel better equipped to facilitate them. Thank you for joining this webinar.